Hey, all. Thanks for stopping by this sixth and final episode of my COVID 19 podcast series. Today, we're talking about life after COVID 19 and what it might look like. I gotta say, the conversation was pretty interesting, so stick around and hang out a bit. Either way, let's get right into it. So, hey, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good. Could you tell me a little bit about yourself?
I can. My name is Grace Carey, and I'm a Master of Public Health candidate at Boston University School of Public Health. I'm currently a volunteer for the Academic Health Department Collaborative, working at the Watertown Health Department. And then I'm also volunteering over in Kent, Ohio at the Kent City Health Department.
Okay, and can you explain what you do in a bit more detail?
Yeah, so my volunteer position right now is basically adapting communications materials to specific needs of the communities that I'm serving. So in Watertown, we're talking about running essential errands and guidelines for caring for someone in your home with COVID-19. And we're adapting those in different languages so that the community has access no matter what language they speak. And then over in Kent, I am currently working on guidelines for face masks. So it's really just ensuring that the community has the best information and knowledge so that we can respond to the pandemic as best we can.
Okay. And what are some of or what's some of the information, regulations, stuff like that that you guys are working with?
So, for example, in Watertown, what's a good example? For running essential errands, it's making sure that you're wearing a mask that covers your mouth and nose. It's making sure that you're wiping down your cart before you go shopping. It's making sure that you're keeping a distance of at least 6 feet between you and any other person in the store. And then when you get home, it's making sure that you're washing your mask, you're disinfecting your groceries before you put them away, you're washing your hands as much as possible, you're wiping down your countertops after you put your groceries away, things like that. So the CDC can put out some guidelines, but they're not necessarily always going to be accessible for people. So our job is to make sure that those are accessible and a little bit easier to read and comprehend.
Okay. So a lot of the things you mentioned are pretty big lifestyle changes for people. How do you think that'll affect life, or how do you think those lifestyle changes will affect life after COVID-19?
I think they're going to stick around for a long time. I really think that this is opening our eyes, not only in public health, but also just people in the community. I think we're kind of taking stock of our own hygiene practices. And hopefully, going forward, we see these trends stick around.
Okay. And do you think like there will be any other changes besides people wiping down things more often? Like there's the big thing where it's like, oh, the handshake is dead, you know?
Yep. Yep. Exactly. This is kind of the weird part. So, humans are social creatures. We're not really meant to be in our individual bubbles. But at the same time, I think seeing these practices and seeing the way that it has uh, caused a decrease, I guess, in the kind of wildfire spread, I think we are going to see maybe the death of the handshake. We're going to see the death of the European greeting of kissing each other's cheeks hello and goodbye. But I think it's going to be hard to keep that sustainable. And I think it's going to be hard to see this trend years down the line. I think eventually we'll get to a point where we're not so afraid to touch each other again. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Do you think going back to so right after this, we expect, people to be kind of a bit more careful about how they act around or not act around, but like how they deal with germs and stuff like that.
For sure.
Do you see the going back to how things were before COVID-19 as necessarily a good thing, a bad thing?
That's a great question. Um, let's see. My fear is that we're going to fear each other. So we didn't fear each other before COVID-19. And I think that the pandemic has really caused a lot of us to kind of rear our heads against everyone else and to kind of shut everyone out. I don't necessarily think that it would be terrible to go back to being so social, but I think definitely we need to keep in the back of our minds that obviously a pandemic is possible, and hopefully, if we're feeling ill before a trip, hopefully we rethink or reconsider going on that trip. You know, um, if we feel ill before attending an event, hopefully we would reconsider that instead of the mindset of, I don't feel great, but I really want to go on this trip, you know? And I think that going forward, if you don't mind if I go on a little bit of a tangent,
Go for it.
I think it'll be interesting to see how transportation and travel changes. So, post pandemic, are we going to see screening in airports? And what's that going to look like? Is it going to be just a questionnaire as we're checking in to grab our boarding pass? Or is it going to be a forehead scan, thermometer, temperature check? And what's it going to look like if people are running a fever, right, as they're looking to board the airplane? These are things that I think about in the big picture, grand scheme of things that I find really interesting.
Do you have any idea of what other regulations might be put in place, beyond just kind of social ones that people put in place themselves, but like government-esque regulations that might affect them or that might be affected, if that makes sense?
Another great question. Yeah, it's hard to tell, especially as we're looking at maybe changing. Um, I want to be sensitive to the time at hand. As the administration may be changing soon, it's hard to tell really what's going to happen moving forward and what this current administration is going to put into place and how that's going to change or may not change moving forward. Um, I can't say I have a great answer for that one.
Like, would you see like masks being mandatory, or oh hey, 6 feet is a thing now, like
Mhm.
that sort of thing?
So I think it's going to be hard for the federal government to pass things like that, but the states are given police powers that allow them to pass guidelines, regulations, laws, even in order to protect and preserve public health. So I think possibly we could see mandating masks at least for a couple weeks. I know that local governments have been saying, hey, you need to wear a mask when you're outside or you will be fined. But I think it'll be harder for states to pass those. And definitely, I don't see those happening as federal laws.
Would you be expecting any other changes that maybe people wouldn't be thinking about to happen, just kind of in general?
Here's a great answer, and I'm totally biased, but I would hope to see kind of a rise in appreciation for public health. I think that public health careers are really going to see a spike, or at least an interest in public health careers, public health degrees. Public health, I think, for a really long time has always been seen as kind of always the bridesmaid, never a bride. And it's really not it's really not a sexy career. You're talking about people getting sick and you're talking about invisible things. So public health is looking at protecting the health of the public, obviously, but it's ensuring that people don't get sick. And so public health doesn't really get applause for that, you know? If you don't see people getting sick, there's nothing to really clap for. But here, we're seeing public health really in the spotlight for the first time in a long time, and in a big way. So I think that we're going to start seeing more and more people going for public health degrees and public health careers, and hopefully taking, I think hopefully the public is going to be taking public health more seriously moving forward.
Okay, awesome. Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Hmm. As a final word, We're all in this together. It's hard to see what the future is going to look like as we stand, but we're all in this together. We're going to get through this, and hopefully, we won't see anything like this in the future.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for listening and going on this 6-episode journey with me. If you like what you heard today, you can check out some of the other videos in the series as well as some of my other content. If you have any suggestions for another series that you'd like to hear more about, let me know in the comments down below. And don't forget to subscribe and like also. Besides that, stay safe out there.